Kia ora, welcome back to the channel. In this episode, I'm going to be reacting to the New Zealand Special Air Service Selection course, a small fragment of it anyway. This is part one of a two-part video series that was done, or documentary that was done on the New Zealand Special Air Service Selection. This video was, or documentary was done a few years ago now, similar to the Australian one, called First Among Equals. So what I'm going to do is I've skipped the video forward to around the 3-minute 12-second mark. I'll be playing it from here, and I'm just going to break these up into chunks, probably 10 to 15-minute chunks in terms of actual video footage playing from the documentary, and I'll just react to that piece and then hit stop and then do the other reactions later on, rather than clumping it together and having this big mammoth 2-hour-long reaction. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. If you're here, if you'd like to see my reaction to this another bit of a trip down memory lane, just like it was on the Australian one, then stick around and we'll get into it. All right, let's go. Play.
Selection will submit these 50 volunteers from the Army, Navy and Air Force to a series of tests designed to meet the minimum standards for an SAS soldier. Tests such as an ability to survive days without food or sleep and to safely navigate unfamiliar terrain, always against the clock. By the last day, whoever is left standing will have gone through physical and mental hell. Unaware of what lies ahead, the volunteers have been standing resolute since dawn, trying to hide any signs of nerves. Each knows few will make it through the next 10 days. What they don't realise is some won't even make it through today.
What was going through my mind was, just settle down and, it's a long road to home. It was built up to be something that is extremely difficult.
Eddie, I remember Eddie from memory. These guys, there's some faces on here that I recognise, and some of the faces that have been, they're not covered, is because, from what I understand, they were discharging from the unit. So Eddie is out, has been out for a while. He was one of the instructors during my cycle. And Fish, I never knew Fish. And then there's another guy that's on here from memory as well, having seen this a while ago, who was on my selection. He was a TF. He was on my selection, passed. He was bloody fit. And then, but also obviously mentally strong as well. But yeah, his physical fitness definitely stuck out to me. And then from memory, he and the other guy, there was a couple of TF guys on my selection. They both passed. They ended up going and doing a infantry corps training, and then they may have spent 6 to 12 months in a battalion, something like that. Then they went back up to the cycle. I think they did cycle in 99 or 2000, and they passed and got badged. So yeah, pretty cool when I saw them on the video.
Knowing what's going to happen and how you're going to react when it starts to happen.
That's the guy there, or that's one of the TF guys that I was just talking about. Dale, good man, really good man.
It's the hardest challenge that they've had to undertake in their military careers to date.
Stand up! East!
With the famous sand-coloured beret and blue belt as their prize, the volunteers must be prepared to give their all.
For a number of you, you're going to be confronted with some very demanding challenges that will really test you both physically and mentally.
I would rather have no one pass a selection than lower the standards.
Put your best foot forward, and I wish you all the best.
Next.
Similar to when I was reacting and watching the Australian selection, just a whole bunch of memories come flooding back. Some of them feel like they were just yesterday. Others a little bit more sketchier, to say the least. But seeing the candidates standing there behind their pack, I remember it seemed like there was lots of times when that happened. And you're just standing, waiting. I remember seeing guys with the sandy beret, the wing dagger, and the sky blue belt, core belt for the unit, and just thinking, right, like I was just mesmerized by that. And just really, really wanted it. So I have no doubt a number of these candidates have got those same emotions and feelings and thoughts running through their head. when you see these guys, these operators, whether they're from Vietnam era or earlier, or whether they're present day, you can't help but have an incredible amount of respect for them. Well, I found for me anyway, because although I didn't know exactly what they've been through, I had an inkling of some of the work, effort, dedication, sacrifice that they've shown to get to where they are. And yeah, I wanted to be a part of that.
Some words of wisdom.
Look this way.
A veteran of missions in Malaya, Borneo and Vietnam, Honorary Colonel David Ogilvie is one of the unit's famous originals.
Initiative, resourcefulness, physical guts, mental drive, all the things that we're looking for from you. Give it heaps.
Nice. Give it.
In everybody's mind, I think, when they enter selection, is just imagine that when you're nearly at the top of that hill, that there's another hill beyond that.
Everybody was feeling the pain, but you had a guy on each side of you who was exactly the same.
And they lasted one day, including some supposedly very fit physical training people. I think that, the whole thing was a bit much for them.
It's cool seeing the trailblazers, the originals, I don't know if all of them are originals, but clearly the Lieutenant Colonel Ogilvie, and then seeing clips, snippets of other former members well before my time, those whose shoulders future operators stand upon because of the groundwork that they laid, the foundations that they built and that they established. And it's cool. It's just great to see them being acknowledged. It's cool to see them as part of this documentary and the making of this, and to hear their words.
Now comes their first surprise. The volunteers have to empty their packs for a full inspection.
What we have given them makes up 35 kgs. It's been checked prior to them coming.
But history has shown there's always temptation for some to lessen the load.
If you don't have some of those items, it makes you stand out.
Move! Watching the volunteers' every move are fully trained SAS soldiers, each with an innate understanding of what the unit needs, because they've had to prove it to get here. And it means they know all the shortcuts to look for.
Yeah, can you be rattled? So we can all be rattled. That's how quick some people get rattled compared to others.
Those with missing items face a dressing down and are re-kitted.
You'll notice it's different to the first kit inspection on the Australian Special Air Service Selection. You're not stripped down naked and told to lay everything out. I don't know if that's something that they do now. I don't think so. I think New Zealand's got its own way of doing things, Australia, the UK, etc. And this process works for them. You do end up, when you're there, because everything is in your pack, if it's still the same, and it looks like it still is from this video, even though it was a number of years ago now, everything's in there because you end up getting dressed into different pieces of kit for the different activities that you need to do. And so you've got to keep everything in there. Your PT kit will be in there, a change of uniform, like the uniform that they're in will be in there, spare shoes, or your running shoes will be in there, PT socks, boots, etc., as well as the rest of your gear. So there will be times, or there were times, when you basically are stripping down. You're out in the open to basically change parade, get into the equipment that you're told to get dressed into, that you should have in your equipment if you've packed all your gear. So
Get changed into PT kit. Move.
what is that?
Get changed into PT kit. Move.
There you go. Getting changed in the PT kit now.
These volunteers are as fit as they've ever been, following months of preparation. And they'll need to be.
We had to induce a certain amount of stress and mental fatigue in a very short time period, just to test the individuals and their ability to withstand all of that.
Listen up. On the command move, this is what I want to see happen. Leaving your weapons where they are, double down. Move!
The dreaded PTIs.
Straight away, they must prove their fitness levels. Anyone not meeting the 10-minute target will fail.
When you want something in life, you know you've got to go after it. I came along very fit. I wanted to get in there, and nothing was going to stop me. Nothing. And I mean nothing. And they really gave it to me.
Just pausing there for a second. Rest in peace to this gentleman here, Mr. Moffat. He was awesome. We already knew on my cycle, he was constantly helping refurbish, getting us to help. Well, we had the privilege to help him refurbish the CQB ranges and doors were getting blown off and needing to replace them and all that sort of stuff. But man, what I remember of him, I don't know how much longer he stayed there, but I'm pretty sure he probably stayed there because he loved the unit. I could see that, and you could feel that when you had the opportunity to be around him. And those of us that were on cycle, that were privileged to be on cycle whilst Mr. Moffat was still there and still working tirelessly to support the unit and that next generation coming through, which I was part of one of those generations coming through. Man, he was just a really lovely man, which sort of caught me by surprise because I was like, oh man, he's not grumpy like the other guys that were there serving in the unit at the time, like the sergeants that were there. But I realized, down the track that they weren't grumpy. They were doing their job, and they had a serious job to do, to train operators to be able to serve in that role that they could trust, that they knew that, because they were signing us off. And if they're signing us off, who signed this person off if something goes wrong? So, but yeah, I just seeing his face there. He's passed away now a few years ago from memory, but he was a lovely man, really good man, good heart, kind to us, kind to those of us on my cycle anyway, and just clearly well missed by his family and by the unit. I've cut off his 10 minutes.
10 minutes 18.
10 minutes.
Move up to the side here.
The first test of selection, and already one man's dream is over.
That's it. If they don't meet the required standard of any of those fitness tests, they are removed.
Yeah, there's no retest. You get one shot. You turn up day one. You should know that you're going to be put through these physical tests. They basically take all the military tests that would typically be done maybe over a week, depending on your unit or your corps, and they condense them all into one day. The 2.4 that you just saw there, the push-ups, there'll be pull-ups, there's sit-ups, there may be dips or may not be. There'll be some sort of swim element, there'll be a pack element, pack carry, a little obstacle course and fireman's carries and all those sorts of things which make up, or at least which made up the selection course when I went through it. And there was another test, I don't know if it's on here, but there was another one called the Hounds and Hares or Hares and Hounds. And that, again, is another one of those tests. That's not a standard military one, that's just for the unit. And then the unit grabs all those tests. They may tweak them because they've got their standard. There's the Army standard, which is here, which is cool. And then the unit will be typically levels above what the minimum requirement is for the Army as a whole or in general. So, and as they should be as well. But old mate has rocked up over the 10-minute cutoff. Some of them have timed their run really well, 9:55, thereabouts, 9:50. That's good. You've come in under time. But old mate, 10:18 or whatever it was, you're done. You fail any of the minimum requirements, especially on day one, well then you're not sticking around. You're getting a window seat back to your unit.
Without pause, they are set a barrage of physical tests to which they must give maximum effort. And while some outperform, others crumble.
If you're lazy, you're going to have problems, eh? If you don't put the work in beforehand, it's going to catch you out.
Comes above and back down, pull up. Ensure that the legs stay naturally hanging at all times. All the way up.
Guys get nervous before doing pull-ups and they lose all their upper body strength.
G1 requirement, no more than 130.
Here, no one escapes scrutiny, and a few have underestimated what's required.
You start to see people drop out in the first couple of hours.
In a heartbeat, they're back in fatigues as they're confronted with more hurdles. Tests that take several days in the conventional forces are crammed into the first few hours of SAS Selection.
We do all the physical tests that are required in the New Zealand Army. That's the standard that we set.
The testing grounds are not restricted to dry land, as time and time again they're sent back into freezing water during the morning.
Move into the water.
But pushing the thresholds has been carefully calculated.
They compress everything together in one day.
And you think that if the whole selection's like this, you know, you're going to have to dig a bit deeper.
First man sitting down along this train.
There's no respite, and they're straight into the next challenge.
Up that rope.
And by now,
you're definitely thinking, heck, if this is just day one, we're not even halfway through day one of selection. You're getting people drop off. You're getting people just quit, go, nah, I can't do this. And you're getting people who fail to meet the minimum standards for the different tests or the tasks that are expected and required. And when you see that happening, like Eddie was saying, your mind starts to think, holy heck, how am I going to maintain this level? How am I going to pass these things for the next 9 days of testing? And that's when people start to lose it up here, and then they start to withdraw. Doubt creeps in, worry and concern, overthinking about what the next day is going to bring. It's like, bro, just focus on this next task. Just focus on completing this task and meeting the required standard. Don't worry about overwhelming yourself and thinking too far ahead.
the body is starting to hurt.
When you get back down, you'll touch the ground, you get straight back up there.
They will be starting to feel fatigued.
Yeah, stop there. You have to go back, start again. Up.
Endurance is probably the biggest one rather than physical strength.
One more shot. Hurry up. Get up there. Stop.
It's only midday, but for some, the dream is over.
How much time is that?
The selection course sorts out those who can actually put to one side the aggravation of the moment for the long-term purpose of finishing.
Was demanding physically, mentally, and I guess to a degree emotionally.
Or just made you run everywhere. All the gear you had, quite often the gear would be scattered from back of the barracks right down to headquarters.
This is one of my mates' fathers. His son and I were on the NZ Selection together. Good man. So it's cool seeing him. It's cool seeing some of these. It's cool seeing all the older faces, but it's especially cool seeing a couple of older faces that I recognise and have good memories of.
You wouldn't have it fitting properly.
The temperature is rising fast on day one of selection for the New Zealand SAS. Already 4 volunteers are on their way home.
They have a measure of military experience already. They are fit. They are well motivated. They are a lot tougher.
The volunteers have undergone rigorous psychological tests to determine if they have the compulsory physical, mental and emotional balance that the unit demands.
We use multiple sources, so we use the personality test, cognitive test, we interview people, we look at their past performance. Past performance is one of the key indicators of future performance.
You may get people who are attracted to the unit who definitely not suited for service in the unit because of their backgrounds, their profiling.
If they don't meet the qualities, we can't recommend them.
Afternoon brings on the real business of the day. And there are some who are just hanging out.
They should be strong enough, fit enough to be able to take that into their stride and keep going.
1 8-kilometre force march by foot, total 72 minutes to complete the task. Beware of oncoming traffic.
If they fail to meet the time, look for arrest, infringe in any way, they will be eliminated. Every footstep carries the added burden of 35 kilograms on their backs.
I was fortunate enough to come from the battalion where you carry your house on your back.
The combined load of the pack with survival gear, radios and weaponry is the equivalent of carrying 2 heavy suitcases. And with the clock ticking, it's all carried at a blister-inducing rate of 7 kilometres an hour.
You have to push on those on your pack march, on the requirements on the tasks that they give you, while carrying your house on your back. Those that come from an infantry background, doesn't guarantee it, but those that, and for myself, coming from having the privilege to come from an infantry background, it definitely helped me, and that's the path that I'm glad I went. And if I was ever going to do it again, that is the route I would go personally, the infantry route. Soldiering skills and basics, fundamentals, and the pack fitness. It was normal after every exercise to walk out 20, maybe 30 kilometres or more after each exercise. You knew that was the standard of what was going to be happening at the end of pretty much every field exercise or training exercise that I was on during that time. Sometimes it may not have been that far, might have only been 10 or 15 kilometres, but usually you were walking out and it was a fair stomp to get to where you needed to get to. So these guys pushing a pace at 7 kilometres, 72 minutes to complete the 8-kilometre force march. You want to be shuffling along. I call it a shuffle anyway. Some people might call it a run. Excuse me. The rate that I was going at, I definitely wasn't running, but I was trying to shuffle, trying to move quick, not a walk and not a run, at least not when I did it. Some guys could run with it, but that's still a heck of a lot of weight, jolting and jarring on your back, on your shoulders, on your spine, through to your legs, on your hips, as you're trying to move with that.
As muscles cramp and leather boots rub toes raw, the field thins out. Even these seasoned soldiers are starting to feel the effects of the day.
And you're starting to get blisters on your feet. You just got to cope with it.
Yep. The peg cuts into your shoulders. It was going to hurt, but my focus was getting through.
If you look at pictures of soldiers, sometimes you see it's a little man who's carried the Bren gun. It's a little man who's carrying the machine gun. It's a little man who knows how to drive himself and has been doing that all of his life.
When you're ready,
While most have made it to the end, there are still those who are over the 72-minute time limit. And again, there is no second chance.
Well, you're gone.
After 10 bruising hours, those remaining are loaded into trucks and driven deep into country to face the brutal chase known as the Hare and Hounds. Although tired and sore, they must chase a fresh and fast SAS soldier, the Hare.
This is a maximal activity. You want to run as hard as you can for the given distance. You are to stop when told to stop. At no time are you to drop behind the 2 sweepers. Group 1, go!
So you have the hounds and hares and hounds. As they mentioned, you got an operator, fit, fresh, ready, and they're usually, they're they're fit. It's rare in my experience for any of the candidates to catch the hare, which is that fresh operator. But I do know of at least one gentleman. He was a senior soldier to me. We came from the same battalion, but we were in different companies at the time. And then I think he went to Recce Platoon for a while as well before he went on selection. But GT is what he goes by. Mr. Tefaro, he was, from what I heard anyway, he caught up to the hare on his selection. He was, GT was a machine. Like, he was training. I'd heard about him when I was in battalion. Obviously I was a bit junior to him. He did his selection before me, and he just, he just prepared, focused, dialed in, and went on selection and passed and passed really well. But I'd heard the story about him catching the hare. I was like, holy heck, that's, after everything they've been through right now, this is just over midday now into the early afternoon. You've gone through all this work, and for him to catch the hare was bloody, or be hot on his heels. I don't know if he went past him, but I think he was feeling good enough that he was able to catch up to the hare, which is a feat in and of itself. And the last part is that you got the sweepers, more badged operators typically, who leave after you, after all the groups have gone, or after the group has gone. On my one, we didn't have groups, we didn't have bands, coloured bands like what the selection has. Maybe because we didn't have as many as what they have started off with. We just left in one big clump after several minutes after the hare had gone. And then I believe several minutes after we left, then the hounds, sweepers left after us. And we're told the same thing. Don't drop behind them. Don't come in after them. If you do, then like the senior instructor said, well, you're gone. So, it's good to see that that's still a part of selection.
Those volunteers on borrowed time are sent first.
Stand by! Go!
Therefore, at the end, they should be coming in around about the same time.
And these two legs, they weren't going to let me down.
Go!
To make matters harder, 2 more SAS soldiers act as sweepers, the hounds, and no one must finish behind them.
It's awesome. Just for me, watching this, seeing, reliving in my head what it was like for me going through selection. This wasn't terribly hard. Like, nothing leading up to this point here was terribly hard. Not that I didn't feel anyway, because I had prepared physically. I had prepared myself physically and mentally, that I knew I had a heck of a lot more in the tank, and that this wasn't going to last forever. Although it can seem like that at times, it can seem like it's going to last forever, and that's part of the reason why a number of people quit or pull off. But I knew it wasn't going to last forever. But if you turn up, having prepared physically well, and having done hard enough training during your preparation, it's going to set you in good stead. If you haven't trained consistently hard enough prior to going on selection, that's where you can start to be in the hurt locker before you even get to this stage. So, trying to prepare well. It's just seeing the scenery, the landscape in that as well. This is probably a little different from the area where I did mine, maybe it's the same. But the emotions and the feelings come back watching it in a good way. Good because I'm not having to do it again, but also good to relive and re-experience the feelings that I had during that time. Yeah.
By now, it's not just weariness that is slowing them down.
I think the boots play a big part as well. For me, I didn't choose the ideal boot for selection. I mean, if you can't walk, you can't finish. It's your wheels, really.
All the way through there is pain. It is hard. It's very hard. You're starting to get blisters by this time. The boot's just rubbed.
The thought of being beaten by the clock or caught by the hounds is enough to spur most on.
And there's one speed only. Just go for it.
Hey, I'm going to pause this there. That's just over 31 minutes on here. Yeah, Dale had one speed only. I give you that, tell you that much. That guy was a machine on my selection. We were on selection together, and yeah, I mean, I wasn't in the locker, like I said, but I definitely wasn't able to sprint or go all out. But I knew I could move well enough to stay ahead of the hounds and to try to be that grey man. In my head, I'm like, I'm already junior, probably one of the youngest, if not the youngest on the selection that I was on, surrounded by these incredibly experienced and who I looked up to, very, very good operators, very good soldiers, who some of them took the time to help me out on pre-selection, especially with my navigation. Mr. Wano, you were definitely one of those helping me out with on pre-selection with my navigation. Thank you, bro. And, you know, if it wasn't for people like that, like Brian Wano, like other members on the selection, senior soldiers to me, and for their examples, you know, it would have been a lot harder for me. I still had to do the work, but yeah, just grateful to have those mentors around and that support when I needed it. When I asked for tips and help, they were just open and willing to give those tips to help me along or to help me out where they could. But as Dale said, there's only one speed. I mean, yeah, you want to go at the speed that keeps you ahead of the hounds, but probably in that space where you're sort of part of the group, hence why I was wanting to and trying to be that grey man as much as I can to sort of blend in, because eventually I knew the numbers are going to dwindle down and then you're going to stand out more for good or for bad. So if I could stay in that grey space for as long as I could, then I was happy. So yeah, I'm going to pause this video there. That's 15 or 16 minutes into this one, 33 minutes on here, or actually to be less than that because I did some of the filming and stuff at the start was rubbish. And yeah, well, we've got a lot more to go through. This is part one of a two-part documentary. As you can see, First Among Equals, we're only about 16 minutes into it. So next time I come back, I'll be picking up from here and then carrying on. This will probably, I'll probably get 4, 5, maybe 6 or 8 videos out of the whole 2 documentaries combined, instead of just doing the 4-hour mammoth total like I did the Australian ones in the 2 parts. So anyway, thanks very much for sticking around. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the suggestions. And if you've got any more suggestions, please feel free to keep banging them through. I have been getting a lot of requests for my reactions to American selection content that's online, and even some other, I think it's Russian Special Forces, with some of the live firing stuff that they're doing. I'll get to those. When I get to those, I'll try to get to those as soon as I can. But just really enjoying this process, reliving some of the experiences, learning in the process as I go. Did a little bit in terms of reacting to DJ Shipley and Christian Craighead. Those videos are already up, and it was time to start getting into the New Zealand SAS selection. So whatever it is that you're going through, keep turning up each day, keep hammering, keep smashing, stay in the fight. And until the next video,